I was suddenly woken from my sleep by a gunshot. Even though I knew the maliciousness of human nature would be exposed in the post-apocalyptic world, the sudden gunshot still gave me a big fright. There was actually someone with a gun in this community. So, I quickly picked up my tablet and started checking the surveillance footage. It turned out that Chen Jianghao and his men were going around robbing houses. After the water supply was cut off, most of the residents would go out to dig snow for water during this time period. And Chen Jianghao was taking advantage of this time to loot supplies. Once the supplies were gone, even if they used the accumulated snow as food, they wouldn't last long. After robbing supplies, Chen Jianghao didn't forget to assert his authority in the homeowners group chat. We've been snowed in for so long. From now on, I'm Chen Jianghao, am in charge of this building. Anyone who tries to undermine me, this will be your fate. He then posted several intimidating photos. Seeing this, I couldn't help but sigh. Chen Jianghao's ruthless tactics were no doubt why he had been so successful in society before the apocalypse. However, his ammunition and followers were ultimately limited. They couldn't possibly face off against all the residents of the building. Just then, I was added to a new group chat. Several homeowners were vehemently denouncing Chen Jianghao's actions in the chat, saying that we all had to unite to resist such a tyrant. Even if he has a gun, he can't stop all of us. But when asked when to take action, a few clever ones suggested that we needed to plan this carefully. After reading these messages, I couldn't help but laugh. The loudest critics were also the most hesitant to take action. They were all just talk. At this point, Uncle Yu, a retired veteran, chimed in the chat. We can't let Chen Jianghao continue like this. Otherwise, we're all doomed. If you all are scared, I can lead the charge. Let's all rise up together. Uncle Yu's words garnered a lot of support from the homeowners. Some offered to provide weapons. Others suggested tactics, saying Chen Jianghao was only one man, and we could ambush him. Seeing all this support, Uncle Yu continued, besides the gun, Chen Jianghao has about 5 or 6 people with him. I alone won't be enough. We need a dozen or so young guys to ensure our safety. Just as everyone was eagerly preparing to volunteer, a woman suddenly spoke up in the chat. Auntie Lin just tricked us out of our supplies. Who knows if Uncle Yu, you won't do the same. If you lead everyone to surrender, what about the rest of us who are old, weak, women, and children? I absolutely disagree. Hearing this, I really wanted to smack her. This woman was the one who stirred up gender conflicts in the past life. In this post-apocalyptic world, if you can't even trust a retired veteran, who can you trust? Soon, the homeowners were divided into 2 factions. The radical faction thought, we should unite against Chen Jianghao now. The conservative faction suspected Uncle Yu was a spy, saying whoever wants to be the scapegoat can be one. Watching the 2 sides bicker for 2 hours, I couldn't help but sigh. This scene was exactly the same as in my past life. Back then, it was these conservatives who kept passing the buck, resulting in the majority of homeowners being brutally killed by Chen Jianghao. But what does this have to do with me eating my curry rice with corn, green peppers, tomatoes, and chicken? On the other side, Chen Jianghao, backed by his gun, was still robbing houses everywhere, not even sparing his own followers. Anyone who dared to resist would be taken away with a single shot from Chen Jianghao. But he knew it well in his heart. Without this gun in his hand, these subordinates might not necessarily obey him. Then he ordered his men to collect all the bodies. Watching this scene from the surveillance, I immediately realized that this guy was planning to use these people as backup food. It seems it's time to find an opportunity to confront this guy. The next morning, the leader of the conservative faction, Lu Tian, sent out a cry for help. In the WeChat group, everyone, come save me. Isn't Uncle Yu a veteran? You all should be able to fight them off. As the impact on the door behind her grew more intense, Lu Tian grew more anxious and said, I'm in trouble. None of you will be able to escape. But as soon as her words fell, the door behind her was broken open by someone, and then she was dragged out like a dead dog. Her ordeal didn't evoke sympathy. Instead, it drew mockery from the radical faction. Serves you right for being a turtle. Your retribution has come, hasn't it? On the other side, Fang Yuking and her girlfriends were also very nervous. When they saw this scene, if they didn't come up with a plan soon, their turn would come soon. At this moment, Fang Yuking had a plan. She must spread the news that Zhang Yi, that guy, had hoarded a large amount of supplies, and then unite everyone to take over his house. So, I was quickly added into a group chat of a mutual aid group. I saw Fang looking at me in the group chat and said, Zhang Yi, it's too dangerous for everyone to live separately now. Your door at home is particularly solid. We lack a secure base. I hope you can join our team. And now everyone must unite. If you are alone, you will be dealt with by Chen Jianghao soon. Seeing the message, I couldn't help but laugh. They want to pull the same stunt as in the previous life. So, I replied indifferently, I'm fine. I'm used to living alone in this little broken house of 150 square meters with heating and electricity. Seeing the situation, the group chat immediately exploded. Old Zhang, don't be so short-sighted. Everyone needs to unite now. Fang Yuking also echoed. On the side, Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. You can save 7 people now. That would be a 48-story pagoda. What responded to them, however, was the message of me leaving the group chat. This made Fong Yuking and the others stunned on the spot. When did this bootlicker evolve into a cool guy? Soon, they began to discuss how to capture my fortress. Glasses Man suggested that as long as everyone was well protected, then directly force the door. They will surely take down that guy in one fell swoop. Brown hair on the side agreed, and I used to work in a lock company. I can open any lock on the market. So, they all agreed and came to my door to start prying the lock. They even prepared a few umbrellas to prevent cold water. As a result, Brown hair pried for half a day, found that he couldn't even budge my lock. Who was in front of the surveillance? Was sneering in my heart. This 5-layer reinforced security door of mine is comparable to the anti-theft level of a bank vault, and you, an ordinary lockpicker, want to pry it open? Then I activated the high-voltage electric defense feature. Brown hair was shocked too. A grimace. Help me, please. However, Brown hair man soon fell to the ground, his body emanating a puff of black smoke. This sight stunned Fong Yuking, who was standing by. The high-voltage electricity had Brown hair man's hands still stuck to the door. Witnessing this, I didn't feel any guilt. At this moment, Glass Man pointed at the door and swore loudly, "Zheng-Yi, you damned beast, come out. We came to talk to you, and you just killed someone. Now Lu Tao is dead because of you. Don't you think you owe us an explanation?" Hearing this, I just laughed. You guys came to pry my door. I don't think there's any need to explain your intentions, I said, shaking my head. I then loaded my crossbow. Isn't it better to stay alive? In the next second, an arrow flew out of the small window at the door, hitting Glass Man's left arm squarely. Seeing this, Xiaoping hurriedly helped Glass Man up. They didn't expect me to be so ruthless and quiet, as I had intended to take their lives right off the bat. Just as they had barely moved a few steps away, 2 more arrows flew out of the small window, striking Xiaoping and another neighbor accurately. Seeing this, Fong Yuking and the other 2 women started to flee, afraid that they would be the next to get hit if they were a step slower. Once they returned to their lodgings, the 3 men who were hit by the arrows lay on the ground howling in pain. If not treated in time in such extreme cold weather, the wounds would necrotize. Moreover, the arrows were rusty. Without antibiotics or other medicines, they could only wait for death slowly. Thinking of this, Glass Man regretted his actions terribly. At this moment, Xiaoping's cousin, Wang Min, walked up to Fong Yuking and slapped her in the face. "It's all your fault, you damn woman. Didn't you say that only Zhang Yi's door is strong? How come there are crossbows? No wonder you were standing so far away just now. Did you know it all along?" Fong Yuking looked wronged. "I didn't know. When we went there last time, he didn't use them." At this moment, Xiaoping quickly stepped forward and shielded Fong Yuking behind him. "Cousin, stop. It's not Fong Yuking's fault. I can vouch for her." Seeing her cousin evolving from a bootlicker to the bootlicker king, Wang Min felt disappointed. Little did she know that the one who ran the fastest just now was herself. Now, the only thing they could do was to contact Dr. Xiao in the community for help. After a while, Xiao Qier came to Wang Min's house to check the wounds of the injured people. However, after seeing the wounds, she looked surprised. "This is the same as the wound I treated for Qin Zhanghao a while ago. It's also an arrow wound." Then, Xiao Qier said that the wounds were too deep. Without professional equipment, the success rate of surgery was less than 20%. Furthermore, the iron arrow was rusty all over. Without antibiotics or similar drugs for treatment, they could only wait for death. Upon hearing this, Wang Min immediately shed 2 lines of clear tears. She and Xiaoping had grown up together, and their relationship was very deep. She then felt her niece. "Dr. Xiao, you must find a way to save my cousin." Xiao Qier turned her head and said, "If we rashly pull out the arrows without medication, the consequences will only be worse. I hope you understand." At this moment, Fan Yuking stepped forward. "I remember a month ago, someone delivered a batch of drugs to Zhang Yi's house. There must be plenty of antibiotics and similar drugs. Why don't we ask him for some?" Hearing this, Glasses Man looked excited. "Really? Then you go find Zhang Yi. He caused my injury. He has to take responsibility." However, Wang Min on the side expressed, "We were almost killed by him just now. How could he possibly give us medicine to save our lives?" Hearing this, Fan Yuking looked unconcerned. "We just wanted to take over his house. We didn't harm him. Besides, we're the ones who got hurt. We're the righteous ones here." Hearing this, Xiao Qier was rendered speechless. "You guys deserve to get shot." Suddenly, Wang Min pointed at Fan Yuking and said loudly, "Then you'll be in charge of getting the medicine. Zhang Yi once pursued you. You're the most suitable person to handle this." Bootlicker King Xiaoping also chimed in. "Fan Yuking, we'll have to trouble you this time. I can only protect you when my arrow wound is healed." Hearing this, Fan Yuking had no choice but to agree. However, thinking of my attitude, she had no confidence. The only plan now was to try making a phone call. Soon, she dialed my number and said, "Lu Tao and Zhoupang are dying. Can you help them?" Upon hearing this, I laughed. "So what if they die? Everyone has to die sooner or later. Besides, you don't really think you can survive this snow disaster, do you? The city is blocked by heavy snow, and this building has become an isolated island. Once the existing supplies are used up, if you don't starve to death, you will be killed by Qin Zhanghao." Upon hearing this, Fan Yuking sobbed tremulously. Jung-yi, I know I was wrong. It's all my fault. I let down your true feelings, but I've come to my senses now. Can you forgive me? Zhou Peng and the others were shot by you. If they don't get medicine, they will die from infection. At this point, Wang Min snatched Fan Yuking's phone. Jung-yi, don't be so heartless. Keep some goodwill. You never know when you might need us in the future. Hearing this, I laughed. Guess why I shot them with rusty arrows? I never intended to meet you again. And how do I know you won't suddenly turn against me? Upon hearing this, Wang Min hurriedly argued. How could we? We are good citizens. I cut her off. Good citizens wouldn't try to take over someone else's house. But well, helping you isn't impossible. Given that I have been pining after Fan Yuking for 18 years, I might consider letting her come over alone. Hearing this, Fan Yuking excitedly grabbed the phone. Jung-yi, brother, I'm willing. From now on, Fan Yuking is yours. Do whatever you want. Her best friend, Lin Caning, also excitedly moved closer. Take me with you. But Fan Yuking slapped away Lin Caning's hand. My brother Zhang Yi only wants me. You should just stay here and behave yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, Wang Min slapped her across the face. You shameless woman. You've caused everyone so much trouble, and now you want to run off. No way. Bootlicker King Zhou Peng also looked shocked. Fan Yuking, how could you do this to me? Didn't you say you hated Zhang Yi the most and wanted to be my woman? Upon hearing this, Fan Yuking immediately started arguing. Is it wrong for me to pursue a better life? If I stay with you, when the supplies run out, we'll all just wait to die. Zhou Peng, isn't loving someone about wanting them to have a happy life? Although you gave me a few bags of supplies, Zhang Yi has a whole Walmart stashed in his house. Hearing this, Bootlicker fell to the ground, defeated in the battle of love, before it even started, and Fan Yuking just turned around and left without a second look. Lin Caning threw her to the ground. Why should you get all the benefits? Wang Min also pointed at Fan Yuking and scolded. You only think about yourself and don't consider everyone else. If we're not doing well, you shouldn't either. Zhou Kor, who was watching their infighting, was speechless, but she still kindly reminded. The wounds have only been temporarily treated. Without medicine, you all need to be prepared. Upon hearing this, Glasses Man had a sudden idea. I have a way to deal with Zhang Yi. From the video he sent us, it's not hard to see that his house is fully stocked. Now we just need to tell everyone in the building about this. If we can't deal with him, someone else surely can. Then we can get a share of the benefits from the sidelines. Upon hearing this, Fan Yuking panicked. Don't be so shameless. How can I live a sweet life with brother Zhang Yi if you do this? As soon as she finished speaking, Wang Min raised her hand to slap her. You dare to be so brazen, you shameless woman. At the critical moment, Zhou Peng stepped in front of Fan Yuking. Sister, hold on. My love for Fan Yuking is genuine. I will win her over with time. Sooner or later, Fan Yuking will fall in love with me. Then, he confidently looked at Fan Yuking. Don't be afraid, I'm here. This angered Wang Min so much that she almost wanted to slap this bootlicker to death. However, she decided to focus on the pressing matter first. She quickly posted some photos of delicious food in the homeowners group. Everyone is almost reduced to eating tree bark, but Zhang Yi is having sumptuous meals every day. Do you think that's fair? Seeing the message, Chen Zhenghao drooled all over the floor. This kid is hiding so many good things in his house. That's perfect. I can get my revenge for old grudges. Upon hearing this, the homeowners group exploded. Some people were trying to morally bind me, asking me to distribute my supplies to everyone. Some people, just for a meal, asked me to become a father to their child. There were even those who were willing to hand over billions in assets just to live in my house. Seeing the message, I just laughed. Why am I close with you? Why should I share my supplies with you? Thinking of these people breaking into my house in the past, I felt a fire in my belly. Now the tables have turned. I thought, let's see how I'll play with you this time. Seeing my reply, Bootlicker King and others looked dumbfounded. Is Zhang Yi not afraid that we will unite against him? Others, seeing my cold-heartedness, began to blame me in the group chat. If you hadn't secretly hoarded supplies, we wouldn't be living like this. You must atone for your sins, and donate the supplies to everyone. Besides, what's the point of living alone? Young people should have the spirit of contribution. Watching them bicker back and forth, I couldn't be bothered to engage with them any longer. Then, looking at the falling snow outside the window, I mumbled. Staying at home every day is quite boring. It seems I should find some time to go out and stroll around. Luckily, I still have a few snowmobiles hidden in my pocket. Dimension. Once I deal with this group, it might be time to see what the outside world is like. Just then, my phone suddenly received a notification. It was a plea for help from Dr. Zhou Ke. Mr. Zhang, our home's medicine and supplies have been completely exhausted. Upon seeing the message, I instantly recalled what Zhou Ke looked like in my previous life. Her death was due to her giving her last food to Xiao Liming and her daughter. However, I didn't immediately agree to her plea, despite a good impression of her from the last life. The prettier the woman, the more dangerous. I don't want to die at the hands of a woman. After barely getting another life, I wouldn't provide help without being completely sure of her trustworthiness. So, I responded, I can provide supplies, but you need to exchange something for them. Upon seeing the message, Joker immediately agreed to become my private medical assistant. If I still wouldn't agree, she could only sacrifice something else, but I did not agree to her terms, and instead, I said, I can provide you with medicine and food, but you have to do me a favor. Those neighbors are about to collapse soon, and they will definitely take action. I need you to be my spy, to acquire their action plans. So, the choice is in your hands now. You can choose to follow the crowd and be a bystander, or you can choose to betray them and side with me. Upon seeing the message, Joker fell silent. If she chose me, she would have to face all the homeowners in the building with me. But what she didn't know was that my house had long been turned into an iron fortress by me. Even if they came with a tank, they couldn't break in. The reason I did this was just to find an excuse to test her. At this moment, Glasses Man sent me a final ultimatum. Zhang Yi, I'll ask you one more time. Will you hand over the supplies in your hand or not? Seeing the message, a cold smile appeared at the corner of my mouth. This guy had overstepped his bounds. I responded cheerfully. Even if I were to feed my food to the pigs, I wouldn't share a bit with you. This angered Glasses Man, grinding his teeth. Very well, Zhang Yi, you still dare to talk tough even when death is imminent. You brought this upon yourself. Don't say we didn't give you a chance. Soon, a chat group was established to denounce me. Chen Zhanghao solemnly said inside. Don't worry, everyone, for this operation to eliminate Zhang, I only need half of the supplies. After getting the supplies, I swear I won't harm anyone. Glasses Man also echoed. Let's put our past grudges aside for now. Our primary goal is to take down Zhang Yi at once. On the other side, after some consideration, Joker finally agreed to my terms. She was very clear in her heart that she, a woman alone, couldn't hold out for long without clinging to a strong figure in this apocalyptic world. Soon, I received a warning from Joker and Uncle Yu. Glasses Man and his gang have decided to launch a full attack at 2.30 tonight. To this, I was not panicked at all, but just curious about what kind of mess this group would make. At this point, Joker sent another message. Those people have gone crazy. Aren't you going to come up with a plan? But I just laughed at her message. I glanced at the guns laid next to me. All fear stems from inadequate firepower. I replied, you don't have to worry about all this. Remember not to follow along with their action. I'm only warning once. With that said, I picked up the gun in my hand. Just sit back and enjoy the show. Soon, it was 2.30 in the morning. A group of people armed with weapons came marching towards my house. We must kill that shameless, selfish ghost, Zhang Yi, this time. Soon, the corridor at the entrance of my house was surrounded by Qin Zhanghao and his gang. Zhang Yi, come out. If you don't want to die, this is your last chance. I saw the scene from the surveillance, and couldn't help laughing. I didn't bother being polite with them. I turned on the high-voltage device, just as a few youngsters were about to break down the door. They were electrocuted into a charred state, emitting a puff of black smoke. Seeing the scene, the others were frightened and dumbfounded, and they wanted to escape. But as soon as they turned around, they were blocked by Qin Zhanghao and his gang. Qin Zhanghao pointed his gun at a person's head. If you dare to enter the battle, be prepared to die. Keep smashing the door. I don't believe this high-voltage electricity can last a year. Glasses Man, their strategist, immediately came forward to encourage them. Don't be afraid, everyone. We must avenge our fallen comrades, as long as we work together to break this iron door. What awaits us inside are a cozy fireplace and endless food. Encouraged by Glasses Man's words, the residents who originally wanted to leave were instantly filled with fighting spirit. They picked up a wooden stake and continuously smashed my door for a bite of food. Everyone was exerting all their strength. Listening to the rhythmic thudding coming from outside, I also became interested. So, I instantly retrieved a large speaker from another space. Seeing you all so hardworking, let me play a tune for you. Hearing the battle song, the neighbors seemed to be injected with a stimulant, hitting the door even harder. However, after half an hour of relentless beating, a few of them were panting and fell to the ground. What kind of door is this? We've been hitting it for so long, but only a tiny scratch was left. It seems we won't be able to break it open without years of effort. At this moment, Glasses Man, who works at a bank, stepped forward and immediately identified it as a bank vault-grade door. He said, such a door can't be breached even by a tank, let alone wood. Hearing this, the others looked shocked. Then, is there no way to open this steel door? Glasses Man sighed. Unless we can find the world's top locksmith, there's no chance to open it without the key. While he was explaining, I had already come to the door with my crossbow. So professional, I murmured and then shot an arrow. Seeing Glasses Man get shot, the other residents in the hallway panicked. Zhang Yi actually has weapons. Glasses Man and Qin Zhanghao didn't even tell us. Some of the slower neighbors were quickly turned into thieves by my arrows. Looking at the neighbors scattered around on the floor, I felt no guilt. If they want my life, there's no need for me to be polite. Just then, Glasses Man had an idea. Everyone, don't panic, I have a plan. Zhang Yi's steel door might be thick, but the wall is still made of cement bricks. I don't believe we can't break it down. Hearing this, the neighbors seemed to understand. We have so many people, we can definitely break his wall in less than half an hour. A few neighbors immediately mustered up their strength and started smashing the wall with vigor, while Glasses Man kept encouraging them. Sure enough, in a short while, cracks started appearing in the wall. Seeing this, a big man smashed the wall with even more force. But the next second, a metallic clang echoed. The impact numbed the man's arm. Glasses Man rushed forward and exclaimed, "Damn it, the wall is made of steel plates too." Hearing this, several big men looked shocked. Who uses steel plates for wall construction? But they still didn't give up. They randomly hit different parts of the wall, hoping to find a weakness. Watching the scene, I couldn't help but laugh. I'm sorry to inform you that the outer walls of my house are reinforced with half a meter thick high-quality steel, not to mention your hammers. Even if a cannonball came, I wouldn't be afraid. Soon, the neighbors realized that I must have known about the apocalypse in advance, which is why I've built such a sturdy fortress. Glasses Man grew angrier the more he thought about it. He knew about the snow disaster all along. This selfish and narrow-minded person only caring about himself, ignoring the lives of everyone else. Some people couldn't bear this despair and started to cry on the spot. At this moment, Chen Zhenghao stepped out from the crowd. What are you crying for? His walls are made of fine steel, but does that mean the ceiling and the floor are too? We will split up and start tearing down the place. I refuse to believe Zhang Yi could have built a tortoise shell. Hearing this, the neighbors were re-energized. They went up and down my house, hammering with all their might. Watching this on the surveillance, I chuckled. Chen Zhenghao has some brain power, but unfortunately, not much. After hammering for a while, they once again fell into despair. As it turns out, I did build my house into a reinforced tortoise shell. Without power tools, they would need to hammer for years, without rest or sustenance, to have any chance of breaking this fine steel wall. At the thought of this, the stomach of a neighbor who had not eaten for 2 days and wasted so much energy hammering started grumbling. He wanted nothing more than to eat a large piece of meat. Thinking of meat, an idea suddenly popped into his head. He looked at a neighbor beside him, and they both drooled at the thought. After realizing what the other was thinking, they awkwardly turned their heads away. Glasses Man, on the other hand, was in despair. Are we really going to wait for death in this apocalypse? That damn Zhang Yi is so cruel. Why can't he sacrifice himself for the good of everyone? Then, a bright idea from Glasses Man. I remember that Zhang Yi had floor-to-ceiling windows on his balcony when he renovated. Maybe we can break in from there. Hearing this, everyone's hopes were reignited. I refused to believe that Zhang Yi would seal his windows. With that, they got together and started moving towards my balcony using planks. Soon, they were outside my window, yelling and threatening. Zhang Yi, it's best if you open the door yourself. Once we break in, you'll regret it. Hearing this, I calmly sipped my coffee. You think you're smart, huh? And who says glass has to be more fragile than metal? As expected, after knocking for a while, they found no traces on the floor-to-ceiling windows and could only vent their frustrations helplessly outside. Of course, I wasn't going to let them off so easily. I leisurely walked to the kitchen and picked up a homemade Molotov cocktail. Since it's so cold, I'll help you warm up a bit. With that, I placed the Molotov cocktail into a small window in the room. The next second, a hole appeared in the ceiling of the balcony. By the time they realized it was a Molotov cocktail, it was already too late. Soon, flames engulfed one of the neighbors. The intense burning sensation made him wail in agony. Before long, he could no longer bear the pain and jumped off the balcony. Seeing this, several neighbors finally felt regret, pressing against the glass, begging for mercy. In your previous lives, you turned me into feces and never showed any remorse. Left with no choice, they had to return the way they came, hoping that those behind them could help. But they were stopped by Glasses Man and his group. Got lost. Don't bring the fire over and involve us. Even hitting the first person with a wooden hammer, the person let out a cry and fell from the high building. Soon, those with no way out were burnt to charcoal in the fire. In the face of this scene, Glasses Man and his group showed no mercy. Instead, they gathered around to warm themselves by the fire. The neighbors, starved and no longer arrogant, dropped their weapons, crossed the balcony, and came back to my floor-to-ceiling windows. Shunny, we were wrong. We just want a bite to eat. Please save us. We'll do whatever you want from now on. Listening to the police from outside the window, I sighed. Don't be like this. It makes me feel so bad. I have a strange quirk. When I'm upset, I want to eat. Saying this, I started eating the noodles in my bowl. The sight of this made the people outside drool all over the ground. If only we could have some soup. I know that in this apocalypse, only human hearts are unpredictable, but now I have a better strategy. I then said to the people outside, of course, Shunny, am not a cold-hearted person who wouldn't save people. I'll give you a chance. Bring me Qin Zhanghao's head, and I'll feed you these kinds of noodles for a week, enough for each meal. Hearing this, they all looked excitedly at Qin Zhanghao in the next building. At this moment, in their eyes, Qin Zhanghao looked like a delicious roast chicken. Taking him down would mean they wouldn't have to worry about food and drink for a week. Seeing their ill-intent gazes, Qin Zhanghao felt a chill down his spine. A feeling of there are always villains trying to harm me or rose. Before he could think further, they charged towards him. However, under the threat of Chen Zhanghao's gun, they dared not act rashly. At this moment, Chen Zhanghao received a bounty notice I sent in the homeowner group chat, saying that anyone who could kill Chen Zhanghao would receive a week's worth of food. Seeing the message, Chen Zhanghao ran off immediately, finally understanding why everyone was giving him hostile looks. The following day, bright and early, several neighbors had already set up an ambush for Qin Zhanghao. Although Qin Zhanghao had a pistol, his bullets were ultimately limited. Moreover, my impenetrable safe house was simply not something they could break through. From previous attempts, they had already lost 40 to 50 people. Rather than starving to death sooner or later, it was better to find an opportunity on the crippled Qin Zhanghao. At this time, Qin Zhanghao was scolding his two subordinates to go out and eat snow. He was well aware. At this moment, he was the little fat lamb in the eyes of all the property owners. Whatever he did, he had to act quickly. Just then, two neighbors who had been ambushing for a long time launched a sudden attack with kitchen knives. Seeing this, the two subordinates were shocked. Watch out for the back. However, it was already too late. Two neighbors with red eyes holding kitchen knives had already reached their back. Yet, they were shot down by him. At this time, Qin Zhanghao was panting heavily. Luckily, he responded quickly. Following that, Qin Zhanghao ordered his men to drag the two bodies back home, just worrying about having nothing to eat. These two reckless things even came to the door. Just at this moment, one of the subordinates exclaimed, "Quick, look at your back." It turns out that although Qin Zhanghao had just dropped the two men in time, he was still cut by a kitchen knife, leaving a long wound. Afterwards, Qin Zhanghao asked the subordinate to help him back to the room, while he made a call to invite Dr. Zhou to come and treat his wound. A moment later, Zhou Kor, carrying a medicine box, arrived at Chen Zhanghao's house. I must make it clear in advance, I won't help you for free. Hearing this, Chen Zhanghao smiled. Of course, I'll share some food with you. After saying that, he had a subordinate bring over a basin of chicken feet. However, seeing the food, Zhou Kor felt nauseated. Naturally, she knew what was in the basin. She immediately declared that she would rather die than eat such a thing. Chen Zhanghao on the side gave a lecherous smile. I can't bear to see you die. He knew how important it was to have a doctor by his side in this post-apocalyptic world. After saying that, Chen Zhanghao reached out to touch Zhou Kor's cheek. I will save you for the last. Seeing this, Zhou Kor quickly slapped his hand away and turned around to leave, but was stopped by the two subordinates behind her. Why is Dr. Zhou in such a hurry to leave? You must stay here until my wound heals. Then Qin Zhanghao began to discuss plans with his subordinates. Ever since I issued a bounty, Qin Zhanghao had become a fat lamb that everyone wanted to eat. Now he must quickly deal with the threat that I posed. So, Qin Zhanghao and his men decided to move next door to my house and keep a rotating watch, waiting for the moment I step out of the house to take me down. Zhou Kor, who heard their conversation, immediately got up pretending to go to the bathroom, but actually, she was telling me their conversation in the bathroom. I told her to stay there and keep observing. Soon, the door of Glasses Man's house next door to me was knocked on, and then Qin Zhanghao and his men swaggered in. Knowing that they were going to live here, the couple of Glasses Man didn't dare to say more. Fortunately, they had already hidden the remaining food on their bodies. There were so many empty rooms in this building, any one of them would be suitable to live in. Just at this moment, two subordinates landed a blow on the back of the couple's heads, and in no time, the couple fell in a pool of blood. Chen Zhanghao, standing to one side, gave a cruel smile. I'm doing this for their own good. The weather is so cold, they would freeze to death sooner or later if they go out. Moreover, we have to store some food, don't we, Dr. Zhou? At this time, in Wang Min's house, the three Glasses men lay on the sofa, wailing incessantly. Ever since their last unsuccessful attack on my house, their plan to forcibly take medicine had also failed. Now without the treatment of antibiotics and other drugs, their wounds had started to fester. A disgusting stench wafted through the entire hall. Seeing this, Glasses Man was shocked. He had just graduated and was looking for a job. He didn't want to die so soon. The wounds of Zhou Peng and the others were in the same condition. If they were just a simple scratch, it would be okay. But alas, they were wounded by my rusty arrows. Without the use of antibiotics, their wounds would only get worse. At this moment, Zhou Peng ran to Wang Min. Can you please plead with Zhang Yi for us again? Otherwise, we're all going to die. But Wang Min waved his hand. I'm out of ideas. Zhang Yi is not easily persuaded. On the other side, after the bounty was put on Chen Zhanghao, he had begun to feel restless. He even feared that he would be ambushed by his subordinates in the middle of the night. So, he used meat and a pistol to threaten some residents to join his camp. Hearing that there was food, many people willingly joined. Seeing this scene from the surveillance, I couldn't help but laugh. Even if you have many people in your camp. Chen Zhenghao, what do you think they will do when there's no food left? Then I picked up the phone to call Zhou Kor, asking her about the situation. On her side, I could only hear Zhou Kor nervously answering. Chen Zhenghao's group has gone crazy. The existing food has been eaten up. They are preparing to start robbing houses. In these few days, many neighbors have already become their feces. Then she pleaded, can you save me? I haven't eaten anything for 2 days. I can't hold on much longer if this continues. Upon hearing this, I paused for a moment. Zhou Kor is the main surgeon at the nearby Grade 3A hospital. In the post-apocalyptic world, doctors are hard to find. We can't let her die so easily. So, I replied, don't worry, once I finish this last task, I assure you will not want for anything. Just then, my front door was knocked. Zhou Peng was at the door, hysterical. Zhang Yi, you coward, come out. Fan Yuking is starving to death, and you're still hiding in here. Are you a man? Hearing this, I laughed. At this point, I'm willing to call you the last bootlicker in the apocalypse. So, I said flatly, you're still thinking about Fan Yuking at a time like this? You should think more about yourself. Given your current situation, the tetanus bacteria has spread all over your body. Even if I gave you antibiotics, it would be useless. I remember you've been a bootlicker for so many years. I don't think you've ever even held Fan Yuking's hand, have you? Instead of waiting here to die, you might as well do what you want to do. Hearing this, Zhou Peng suddenly realized. He struggled to get up, staggering back up the stairs. After returning home, Zhou Peng rushed into Fan Yuking's room, kneeling down before her with a thud. Seeing Zhou Peng in his state, Fan Yuking was instantly scared into screaming, Zhou Peng, what are you doing? Zhou Peng, his eyes bloodshot, stared at her intently. Fan Yuking, will you marry me? Fan Yuking frowned. Disgust filled her eyes. She instinctively pinched her nose. I won't. She shoved Zhou Peng to one side, bitterly saying, get out of here, you're about to die. You stink. I have to go find Zhang Yi. Who do you think you are? You're not even a spare tire in my book. Zhou Peng broke down. He had given so much for Fan Yuking. Even his own life was at stake. But Fan Yuking never had a heartbeat for him from beginning to end. In desperation, Zhou Peng grabbed Fan Yuking's neck tightly, shrieking hysterically, you love me, I'm going to die soon. Let's go to hell together. Together forever. Seeing this, Fan Yuking fearfully slapped Zhou Peng. No, get away from me. You smell so bad. Disgusting. You dare call me smelly? Isn't it because of you that I ended up like this? Fan Yuking, her face turning purple from Zhou Peng's grip, struggled desperately. Who's to blame if you're useless? Desperate loser. Meanwhile, after a night of deep thought, Zhou Kor finally agreed to Zhang Yi's proposition. She knew it was a test from Zhang Yi. Although dangerous, if she didn't do it, she wouldn't last long under Chen Zhenghao. With this thought, Zhou Kor slowly walked towards the kitchen. She told Chen Zhenghao that she wanted to help in the kitchen. Hearing this, Chen Zhenghao thought Zhou Kor had come to her senses, nodding his head in approval. That's best. I knew you couldn't resist. You still have some use for me now. Zhou Kor turned her head back and returned to her usual aloof demeanor. She slowly said, I don't want to die. I want to live. Hearing this, Chen Zhenghao finally relaxed. He waved his hand nonchalantly and let Zhou Kor into the kitchen to help. Once inside, Zhou Kor picked up an axe and started to chop wood for the fire. Energy is scarce these days. Cooking can only be done by burning furniture. Although she had agreed to Zhang Yi's terms, she couldn't help but feel a bit hesitant about this kind of meat. After a while, a little brother asked Zhou Kor to watch the fire. Don't let it go out. Then he turned and left to prepare the ingredients. Seeing this, Zhou Kor knew her chance had come. First, she pulled out a small bottle from her pocket, poured all the liquid inside into the pot. Then, fighting the nausea in her stomach, she carefully stirred the pot. At mealtime, she served everyone a large bowl of meat soup. Chen Zhenghao, looking at the steaming meat soup in his bowl, smiled. I never thought the day would come when Dr. Zhou would join us. In order to gain their trust, Zhou Kor also served herself a bowl of soup and quietly went back to her room. They had no idea that Zhou Kor had drugged the meat soup. Back in her room, Zhou Kor waited silently for the drug to take effect. She had put most of a bottle of sleeping pills in the pot. These sleeping pills work quickly. Just one pill can put someone into a deep sleep in 30 minutes. Now all she had to do was wait and pray that Chen Zhenghao wouldn't notice. She had tampered with the soup. In no time, Chen Zhenghao and the others fell asleep on the sofa. Seeing this, Zhou Kor knew the drug had taken effect. She took a deep breath and immediately messaged Zhang Yi. I've given them a large dose of sleeping pills. They've all passed out. What are you planning to do next? Zhang Yi replied flatly. Drag them to the balcony. Seeing that Chen Zhenghao and his group were all here, I immediately let out a cold sneer. You guys finally fell into my hands. Ha! Zhou Kor saw me smirking on the other side and nervously asked, do you plan to kill them all? Hearing this, I smiled and directly tossed a hemp rope over. You guessed wrong. The one to take action is you, not me. Now find the gun on Chen Zhenghao and throw it to me, then tie them all to this railing. Upon hearing this, Zhou Kor hesitated. If she was really to kill, she didn't know if she could do it. Before she could think more, I pointed a handgun directly at her. You only have this one chance. Miss it and it won't come again. Seeing that I wasn't joking, Zhou Kor had no choice but to follow my instructions and tie up Chen Zhenghao and his group. Then she found that ostentatious handgun on Chen Zhenghao. Just then, I pointed the handgun directly at Jokor's head, took out the gun's magazine, and then threw it over. Hearing this, Jokor looked hesitant. How do I know you won't suddenly turn against me? But I just laughed. Do you have any other options now? In such extreme weather, you won't last long without my help. Upon hearing this, Jokor had no choice but to remove the magazine according to my instructions, and then she threw the handgun to me. After receiving the gun, I carefully examined it, confirming that it was the same one Chen Zhanghao had used before. I turned and went back to the room. Next, I took out a water pipe and opened the valve, spraying it directly at Chen Zhanghao's group. Jokor was shocked to see this. This way of turning people into ice lollies was utterly cruel. Chen Zhanghao, who was sleeping soundly, was frozen awake on the spot. A few underlings next to him were also screaming from the negative 100-degree cold water. Looking at his bound hands and feet, Chen Zhanghao realized that he had been drugged. Immediately, he twisted his head to look at me. Zhang Yi, you are so despicable. Hearing this, I just laughed. You dare to call me despicable? It's time to send you guys on your way. With that, I opened the valve again. The next second, a thick column of water sprayed directly at several people.